What if the man you loved was a monster? And what if the monster you married had no idea who you really were? This is the story of Bella Hayes, a woman living a golden lie, pregnant with the child of a charismatic millionaire, Julian Vance. But behind the doors of their Bel Air mansion, every day was a new betrayal, a new bruise, a new cut. He thought she was his possession. He thought he could break her, hit his pregnant wife, and get away with it. He made one fatal mistake. He never asked about her father. He didn't know that Bella wasn't just a wife. She was an heiress. And her father, Arthur Hayes, wasn't just a man. He was a force of nature, a CEO with a global empire, and he was about to unleash a storm of vengeance that would cost Julian Vance everything. The heavy glass of the champagne flute felt cold against Bella Vance's palm, a stark contrast to the nervous warmth fluttering in her stomach. She stood on the marble balcony of their Bel Air home, a sprawling monument of glass and white stone that overlooked a sea of city lights. The house felt less like a home and more like a fortress, a beautiful, sterile cage designed by her husband, Julian Vance. Julian was across the lawn, the center of a laughing, glittering crowd. He was magnetic. That's what everyone said. With his sharp, custom-tailored suit, a smile that could disarm billionaires, and a laugh that echoed with new money confidence, he was the man who had everything. And she, Bella, was his most beautiful possession. "Isn't he marvelous?" a woman named Cynthia Miller whispered, her eyes glued to Julian. "To build Vance Dynamic Properties from nothing? He's a true visionary." Bella smiled, a practiced, polite curve of her lips. "He's very driven. From nothing." That was the official story. The truth was more complicated. Julian had talent, yes, but it was Bella's family name, a name she had so carefully downplayed that had opened the first few impossible doors. She had wanted him to love her, not her inheritance. She had introduced her father, Arthur Hayes, as a semi-retired consultant from Chicago, not as the CEO and majority shareholder of Hayes Global Holdings, a conglomerate with a reach that spanned continents. Julian had believed her. He was arrogant enough to believe his own charm was all it took. Bella discreetly set the untouched champagne flute on a passing tray, her hand drifting to her stomach. This was the source of her secret warmth. 3 days. For 3 days, she had held the most incredible secret of her life. She was pregnant. She hadn't told Julian yet. She was waiting for the perfect moment, their 1-year anniversary dinner tomorrow night. She imagined his surprise, his joy. She imagined him finally softening, the hard, ambitious edge that had been growing sharper these last few months finally dulling. The party wound down, the last air kiss was exchanged, the last valet ticket handed over. The heavy silence of the house settled in. Bella found Julian in his study, a glass of amber liquid in his hand, staring at the dark screen of his computer. "You were wonderful tonight, Julian," she said, her voice soft in the cavernous room. He didn't turn. "Cynthia Miller's husband, Robert. He's on the board of the new consortium. He barely gave me the time of day." "Oh, I'm sure he was just busy." "He was dismissive, Bella." Julian spun, his face dark. The charm was gone, replaced by a cold frustration. "He looked at me like I was the waitstaff. These old money dinosaurs, they don't respect what I've built." "It's his loss, darling," she said, moving to rub his shoulders. He flinched, shrugging her hand off. "Don't. I'm not in the mood for that." Bella froze. "I was just trying to comfort you." "Comfort me?" He laughed, a short, barking sound. "You want to comfort me? Go write a check to one of your pointless charities. I have real work to do. This new high-rise deal, it's everything. I need it." A chill went through her. This wasn't the first time. The small slights, the casual dismissals. She'd told herself it was stress. "Julian, you don't need to be so angry." "Don't tell me how to feel, Bella." He stalked towards her, and she instinctively took a step back. He saw it. His eyes narrowed. "What, are you afraid of me now?" "No, of course not. I just—" He grabbed her wrist, not gently. His fingers dug in, a possessive, painful grip. "This house, that dress, the cars, this is all because of me. Don't you ever forget who you'd be without me. A nobody, just a quiet, boring girl from Chicago." Tears sprang to her eyes, from the pain in her wrist and the sting of his words. "Julian, you're hurting me." He looked down at his hand on her arm, as if noticing it for the first time. He released her, but not with remorse, with disgust. He wiped his hand on his trousers. "You're too sensitive," he muttered, turning back to his desk. "Go to bed. And for God's sake, try to look happier tomorrow. We have the anniversary dinner." Bella fled, cradling her wrist. She locked the bedroom door, a habit she'd been forming. She sank onto the silk sheets, and the first sob tore through her. It wasn't the first time. It was just the first time she couldn't lie to herself about it. She looked at the red, angry marks on her arm. The 300 times had begun, not as a physical countdown, but as a series of 1,000 tiny, brutal cuts to her soul. And she held her stomach, her secret suddenly feeling less like a joy and more like a terrifying, fragile liability. The anniversary dinner was a masterpiece of denial. Julian arrived with a box wrapped in silver, a stunning sapphire necklace inside. "To match your eyes," he'd murmured, his voice the smooth, apologetic balm she'd come to crave. He was the perfect husband again. The incident from the party, the grip on her wrist, was unspoken. Bella, desperate to believe, fastened the necklace and let the cold, heavy weight of it settle against her skin. She couldn't tell him. The perfect moment had passed, tainted. The pregnancy test sat hidden in the back of her lingerie drawer. She was now 9 weeks along. Morning sickness, a constant metallic tang in her mouth, was her new companion. Julian's stress became his permanent state. The high-rise deal, a landmark project in downtown LA, was all-consuming. But it was more than that. He was obsessed with legacy, with forcing the old money dinosaurs to respect him. His control over Bella tightened, not with fists, but with a velvet glove lined with steel. "I don't like that friend of yours, Jessica," he said one afternoon, scrolling through Bella's phone. "What? Why? I've known her since college. She's frivolous, and I saw how she looked at me. She's a gold digger. I don't want her influence around you." When Jessica called, Bella made an excuse, then another. Soon the call stopped. Then it was her spending. Bella had her own trust fund, a sizable one, but Julian had insisted on managing their finances. A $5,000 charge at SOTA? "Bella, what is that?" he'd demand, holding up a bank statement. "It's a charity. They support women's shelters." "A shelter!" He spat the word. "We're trying to build an empire, and you're throwing money at that. It's naive. All finances go through my office from now on. Just give the bills to my assistant. It's cleaner." She was being isolated, her powerlessness curated. The 300 times was the click of her bedroom door locking. It was the rehearsed smile she gave the housekeeper, Maria, who saw everything with sad, knowing eyes. It was the text she typed to her father. "Everything is wonderful. Julian is great. while fighting back nausea and tears. Her father, Arthur Hayes, was a constant, gentle presence on the phone. "You sound tired, Ellie," he'd say, his voice a warm echo of her childhood. "Is he working you too hard?" "No, Daddy, just busy with charity work." "Good. But remember, the Hayes name, well, my name, means something in Chicago. But out there, you're Bella Vance. Make sure he's treating you like the queen you are." "He is, Daddy. He really is." The lie tasted like acid. The high-rise deal was stalling. A key investor, a man named Thomas Blackwell, was getting cold feet. Julian was a storm cloud in the house, pacing, muttering, his rages simmering just below the surface. Bella, now 12 weeks pregnant, was physically ill with the stress. The morning sickness was debilitating, and she'd lost weight she couldn't afford to. She was standing in the kitchen, trying to force down a piece of dry toast, when Julian stormed in. "He pulled out," Julian whispered, his voice dangerously calm. "Blackwell. He pulled his funding." "Oh, Julian, I'm so sorry." "Sorry? Sorry doesn't get me $50 million in capital. Do you know what he said?" "He said my projections were aggressive and unfounded. He said I was unstable. He doesn't know you. He does know me. He's just like the rest of them. Just like your father." Bella flinched. "What does my father have to do with this? He's a consultant, right? A Mr. Nobody. He probably sat on a comfortable salary his whole life, never taking a risk. He doesn't know what real ambition is. He doesn't know what it's like to build something." He was vibrating with a rage that terrified her. "Julian, please calm down. It's just a deal." "Just a deal?" His roar shook the room. He snatched the toast from her hand and hurled it against the wall, where it shattered the plaster. "That was my life, Bella." She cowered, her hands flying to her stomach, a purely instinctual gesture. Julian's eyes snapped to her hands. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice dropping. "Nothing. You've been off for weeks. You're pale. You're hiding things. What is it?" He advanced on her. She was trapped between him and the marble-topped island. "Are you sick? Are you—" "What?" "Julian, stop. You're scaring me." "I'm scaring you?" He laughed, a cruel, ugly sound. "You're hiding something. Wives shouldn't hide things from their husbands. What is it?" He grabbed her, not by the wrist this time, but by her shoulders. He shook her. "Tell me." "I'm pregnant!" The words tore out of her, a scream, a sob. "I'm pregnant, Julian. I'm 12 weeks pregnant." The silence that followed was louder than his shouting. His hands froze on her shoulders. His eyes, a moment ago blazing with rage, went utterly, terrifyingly blank. He looked at her stomach. He looked back at her face. He didn't say, "I'm so happy." He didn't say, "A baby?" He released her, pushing her away so violently she stumbled back, hitting the edge of the counter with a sickening thud to her hip. "Pregnant," he said, tasting the word. "You did this. You trapped me." "No, Julian, we wanted this, remember? I wanted a partner," he seethed, "not a leech, a baby. Now, when I'm on the verge of ruin, you did this on purpose." He pointed a finger at her face. "You, and this thing, you're going to ruin me." He walked out. Not just out of the kitchen, but out of the house. The front door slammed, and the echo reverberated through Bella's bones. She slid to the floor, her hands on her stomach, the sobs now silent and agonizing. He knew. He knew about the baby. And he had just called their child a thing. The 300 times was the sound of her hope shattering on the cold kitchen floor. For 3 days, the house was a tomb. Julian didn't come home. Bella existed in a fog of terror. She called his cell. It went straight to voicemail. She called his office. His assistant, cold and efficient, said, "Mr. Vance is in strategic meetings. He will not be available." Bella's world, once a sprawling estate, had shrunk to the space between her bedroom and the kitchen. The housekeeper, Maria, found her on the third morning, curled on the sofa, an untouched plate of food beside her. Maria, a kind woman with grown children of her own, simply sat, took Bella's hand, and rubbed it. "He is not a good man, Mira," she whispered. Bella burst into tears, the dam of her fear finally breaking. "What do I do, Maria? I'm pregnant. I have nowhere to go." "Everyone has somewhere," Maria said, her gaze firm. "You have family. You call them." But Bella couldn't. What would she say? The man I married, the man I defied my family's quiet concerns to be with, is a monster. She was too ashamed. On the fourth night, Julian returned. He didn't look like a man in ruin. He looked energized. He was wearing a new suit, his hair was perfectly styled, and he was whistling. Bella, who had run downstairs at the sound of the door, stopped dead. "Julian, where were you?" "Ah, Bella, there you are." He strode past her, into the study, pouring himself a celebratory brandy. "I solved it. I solved everything." "Solved what?" "I was worried, sick." "You were worried," he said, not asking, but stating a fact as he sipped. "Yes, well, you don't need to worry your pretty pregnant head anymore. The high-rise is back on. I found a new primary investor, a European fund. They're even more aggressive than I am. They love the projections." He seemed to have forgotten, or perhaps simply erased, his reaction to her pregnancy. He was charming, effervescent, and utterly terrifying. "And Blackwell?" Bella asked, wary. "Blackwell? Oh, he'll regret the day he crossed me. But the most amusing thing, the funniest part of this whole mess," he swirled his brandy. "I was doing my due diligence, trying to figure out why Blackwell really pulled out. And I found the name of the company that spooked him." He looked at her, a predatory glint in his eye. "You'll never guess. It's a massive, shadowy conglomerate, Hayes Global Holdings." Bella's blood ran cold. "What? I know, right? What a coincidence. Same name as your father. Can you imagine? Some old dinosaur named Arthur Hayes, probably, sitting in a tower in Chicago, pulling strings just to piss on a guy like me. It's pathetic." He laughed, a genuine hearty laugh. "God, I'd love to meet that guy. I'd love to tell him that his little games didn't work. I won. I always win." Bella's mind was spinning. Hayes Global, her father's company. Her father had intervened. He must have known. Blackwell was one of her father's oldest associates. Her father wasn't trying to stop the deal. He was trying to warn Julian, to test him. A test Julian had just failed, spectacularly. "Julian," Bella said, her voice shaking, "we need to talk. About my father." "What about him?" Julian snapped, his good mood vanishing. "I don't have time for your family's folksy wisdom, Bella. I have an empire to build." "But you don't understand. No, you don't understand." His voice was rising again. "I am on the brink of greatness. This baby, this investment, it's all part of the Vance legacy. And you will not distract me with your sensitivities." The switch from charm to rage was instantaneous. It was the shift that defined him. "I'm not a distraction, Julian. I'm your wife. This is your child. It's a liability until it has my name," he said, his voice dropping to a hiss. "And you are my wife. Which means you are my property. You do as I say." He was close now, backing her against the wall of his study. "I won't," she whispered, a spark of defiance she didn't know she possessed. I won't be. Property. What did you say? I said no. It was the first time she had ever truly defied him. His face contorted. The 300 times of emotional abuse, of isolation, of control, all coalesced in that one moment. He didn't hesitate. His hand, the one wearing his heavy gold signet ring, flew out. He didn't slap her. He backhanded her, a full, brutal strike across her face. The force of the blow sent her crashing to the floor. The world exploded in a constellation of white-hot stars. The taste of blood, sharp and coppery, filled her mouth. Her ear rang with a deafening, high-pitched whine. She lay on the expensive Persian rug, stunned, her hand flying to her cheek, which was already swelling. He stood over her, breathing hard, his fist still clenched. He looked satisfied. "Now," he said, straightening his tie, his voice perfectly calm. "You will go upstairs. You will put ice on your face. You will not leave your room until I tell you to. You will not speak to anyone. And you will be at my side at the investors' dinner on Friday. And you will smile. Do you understand me?" Bella, trembling, pushed herself up on one elbow. She looked at him. The man she thought she loved was gone. In his place was a monster, a stranger. And in that moment, she knew two things with chilling certainty. One, he knew she was pregnant, and he hit her anyway. Two, he still had no idea who her father was. He thought Hayes Global was a coincidence. He had just declared war on a man, thinking he was a nobody, when he was, in fact, a king. Bella slowly, painfully, got to her feet. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just looked at him. "I understand," she said, her voice a broken whisper. "Good." He turned, finished his brandy, and left the room. She locked herself in the master bath. She looked in the mirror. A grotesque, purple and red bloom was spreading from her cheekbone to her ear. Her lip was split. The 300 times was over. This was the final, unforgivable blow. She wasn't a wife. She was a prisoner. And she knew, with a sudden, icy clarity, that she was going to have to escape. The next 2 days were a performance. Bella was the perfect, subservient, broken wife. She stayed in her room. She ate what Maria brought her face hidden. She applied the makeup, thick and cloying, to cover the worst of the bruising. Julian enjoyed it. He would come in, look at his handiwork, and nod. "See?" he said, tracing the bruise with a finger, making her flinch. "You learn. You're quiet. You're respectful. This is how it should be." He was busy, consumed by his new investors. He was arrogant, high on his win, and that made him sloppy. He left his phone on the nightstand. He left his files open. He was planning a celebratory trip for himself, a solo trip to Dubai to finalize the new contracts. "You'll be fine here, won't you?" he'd asked, not even looking at her. "Keep the house in order." He was leaving tomorrow. For a week. A window. Bella had been meticulous. She'd been raised by Arthur Hayes. She hadn't just been taught table manners. She'd been taught strategy. She knew her husband. He was a narcissist, and a narcissist's greatest weakness is their own ego. While he was on his calls, booming about his new success, Bella was making her own plans. She used a cash-back option at a grocery store far from her home, a place she slummed it to buy organic vegetables. She did this 4 times, accumulating $800 in cash. She went to a discount electronics store in a strip mall and bought a burner phone. She hid it all in a hollowed-out copy of War and Peace in the guest room. The morning of Julian's flight arrived. He was giddy, kissing her on the unbruised side of her face. "Don't spend too much money," he joked. "Wait, no, you can't." He laughed. He left. The heavy front door clicked shut. Bella waited. She watched from the upstairs window as his car, driven by his personal driver, pulled away. She waited 10 more minutes. Then she moved. She didn't pack a suitcase. Julian would have his assistant check the credit cards and would be alerted to a plane ticket. She didn't take her jewelry. He would have it tracked. She went to the guest room. She took out the burner phone and the cash. She went to Maria's room in the staff quarters. The housekeeper was folding laundry, her face a mask of sorrow. "Maria," Bella said, her voice low and urgent. Maria looked up. Bella held out the $800 in cash. "I need you to take a vacation, starting right now." Maria's eyes widened. "Senora." "Bella, he's gone for a week, but I can't be here when he returns, and you can't be here. He will blame you." Maria looked at the money, then at Bella's bruised face. She pushed the money back. "I have my own money, but I will go. I will go to my sisters in Fresno." She grabbed Bella's hands. "You must call your padre, mija. You call your father." "I am, Maria. I am. Vaya con Dios." Maria kissed her cheek, grabbed her purse, and was gone out the back door within 5 minutes. Bella was alone in the fortress. She took the burner phone into the master closet, the most soundproof room in the house. Her hands were shaking so violently she could barely dial. She didn't call 911. The police would be complicated. Julian was a prominent citizen. He would paint her as hysterical. She didn't call her father's personal cell. It would be too direct, too traceable for now. She dialed a number from memory. A number she had been forced to memorize as a child. A number she hadn't dialed in over a decade. It wasn't a phone number. It was a protocol. A flat, emotionless voice answered on the first ring. "Security operations. Please state your authorization." Bella's voice was a dry croak. "Authorization 70. Alpha. Hayes. Bella." A pause. The sound of a keyboard clicking. "Authorization confirmed, Miss Hayes. What is the nature of the request?" Bella took a deep breath, clutching her stomach. I am in a hostile environment. Domestic. I am compromised. I need to activate. Patriot." The silence on the other end was absolute. Patriot was not a request. It was a scorched earth command. It was the "my life is in imminent danger" protocol. It was reserved for kidnappings, for corporate espionage, for threats to the Hayes bloodline. The voice on the other end didn't waver. "Patriot is confirmed, Miss Hayes. Are you in immediate physical danger?" "Not this second. The asset, Vance, is not on site. He is en route to LAX. We see him. Flight 117 to Dubai." "Understood. We are 15 minutes out from your location. A black Escalade, nondescript, license plate." The voice read off a string of numbers. "Your driver will be Mr. Thorne. Do not engage with anyone else. Is your current location secure for 15 minutes?" "Yes." "Do you require a medical team?" Bella looked at her face. "Yes, but discreet." "Understood. 15 minutes. Stay off the line." The call clicked off. Bella walked calmly down the stairs. She took her purse, no wallet, her burner phone, and the copy of War and Peace. She sat in the grand foyer, her back straight. She watched the second hand of the great, gilded clock. In exactly 14 minutes, a silent black Escalade pulled up the drive. It didn't stop at the gate. The gate had already been silently opened. A man in a simple black suit, Mr. Thorne, got out. He was built like a mountain and had the impassive face of a statue. He opened her door. He said nothing. He simply waited. Bella stood up, walked out of the house, and didn't look back. She got in the car. The door shut with a heavy, final thud. The car pulled away, As they drove down the winding hill, Bella's burner phone rang. She answered. It was the same flat voice from security operations. Ms. Hayes, Asset Vance is now in the air. We have confirmation. His new investors. Yes, Bella whispered. A shell corporation, laundering money for an oligarch we have been tracking. The deal is fraudulent. When he lands in Dubai, his accounts will be empty. The investors will be displeased. Bella realized her father hadn't just known about Blackwell. He'd known about everything. He had let Julian walk right into a trap. And my husband? He will be detained by Emirati authorities for fraud. His passport will be seized. He is contained. Bella let out a breath she felt she'd been holding for a year. Where are you taking me? To the safe house, Ms. Hayes. The one in Malibu. Your father is en route from Chicago. He will be there in 4 hours. Bella leaned her head back against the soft leather. She looked out at the ocean, and for the first time in a year, she felt a single, unfamiliar, powerful emotion. She felt safe. The Malibu safe house was not a house. It was a $50 million compound, cantilevered over a private, inaccessible beach, fortified with bulletproof glass and a security system that would make the Pentagon envious. It was sterile, beautiful, and utterly anonymous from the road. Mr. Thorne led her inside. A private doctor, a woman with kind eyes and efficient hands, was waiting. She documented Bella's injuries with a high-resolution camera, her face grim. A hairline fracture of the zygomatic arch, the doctor said, gently probing Bella's cheek. The bruise on her hip is severe. The baby? I'm 14 weeks, Bella whispered. A portable ultrasound machine was rolled in. The doctor ran the wand over Bella's stomach. And there it was. A flicker. A tiny, perfect, rapid heartbeat. Thump, 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 thump. Bella wept. Not for her pain, but for that sound. The sound of life. Your baby is a fighter, the doctor said, smiling. Strong heartbeat. You're both going to be fine. After the doctor left, Bella was shown to a bedroom overlooking the ocean. She showered, washing off the thick makeup, the dried blood, the scent of Julian's home. She put on a simple, soft cashmere robe. She was sitting on the balcony, listening to the waves, when she heard a helicopter. A sleek, black Augusta helicopter landed on the pad on the roof. 10 minutes later, the door to her suite opened. Arthur Hayes stood in the doorway. He was not the daddy from Chicago. This was not the man who gave folksy wisdom over the phone. This was the CEO. He was in a perfectly tailored dark grey suit. He was 65, but looked 50. His hair was silver, his eyes a piercing, intelligent blue. He was flanked by Mr. Thorne and a woman in a severe suit holding a briefcase. He looked at Bella. His eyes swept over her, taking in the robe, the bare feet, and the horrific, vivid tapestry of the bruise on her face. His face, which had been a mask of corporate impassivity, cracked, just for a second. A flicker of such pure, cold, primal rage passed through his eyes that Bella almost recoiled. It was the look of a lion who had just found his cub in a trap. Then, as quickly as it came, it was gone. The mask was back. "Bella," he said. His voice was quiet, but it filled the room. "Daddy," she whispered. He crossed the room in 3 strides. He didn't hug her. Not yet. He gently, so gently, cupped her chin, tilting her face to the light. He examined the bruise, his jaw clenching so hard a muscle jumped. He looked at the woman with the briefcase. "Sarah, the doctor's report?" "In the file, sir," Sarah said. "Full photographic evidence. Hospital records. We have it." He nodded. He looked back at Bella. "He did this." It was not a question. "Yes," Bella said. "When?" 3 days ago. "And he He knew. About the child. Yes. Arthur Hayes closed his eyes for a single, long moment. When he opened them, he was no longer a father. He was a weapon. "Thorne," he said. "Sir." "Is he contained?" "Yes, sir. Asset Vance landed in Dubai. He was immediately detained by their State Security Directorate for questioning regarding financial fraud. The accounts are frozen. The investors were a cutout for a rival oligarch. They have strong-armed the Emirati authorities. He is not getting out. His passport is gone. His U.S. consulate access has been delayed." "Good." Arthur turned back to Bella. "He will never touch you again. That is a promise. Now." He sat, not on the couch, but on the hard-backed chair, pulling it close to her. "I am going to ask you one question, Bella, and I need you to be honest. Your answer will determine the next 50 years of this man's life." He leaned in. "What do you want to happen to him?" Bella looked at her father. She thought about the last year, the 300 times, the isolation, the insults, the fear, the blow to her face, the terror for her child. A year ago, she would have said, "I just want to be free." 6 months ago, she would have said, "I want him to get help." But the woman who had been hit, the woman who had called in the Patriot Code, was someone new. She found a cold, hard strength inside her she never knew she possessed. It was her father's strength. It was the Hayes inheritance. "I want him to know what it's like," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I want him to know what it feels like to be powerless, to be controlled, to have everything you think you've built turn to ash. I want him to know who I am. I want him to know who he hit." Arthur Hayes stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then a slow, thin smile touched his lips. It was a terrifying sight. "Good," he said. "That is the correct answer." He stood up. "Sarah, the file." The woman, Sarah, who was clearly his general counsel, stepped forward and opened her briefcase. It was not full of papers. It was full of hard drives and a single, thick binder. "Mr. Vance was sloppy," Sarah said, her voice crisp. He thought the security system in the house was his. It was, of course, a Hayes Global subsidiary. "We have video." She tapped the binder. "We have audio. We have transcripts of every threatening text. We have the financial records showing his systematic theft from your trust fund, which he classified as management fees. We have statements from the caterers he insulted, the staff he underpaid, and the housekeeper, Maria, who has provided a full, voluntary statement." She held up a single hard drive. "And this is the Vance Dynamic Properties, high-rise. Mr. Vance's European investors?" "A shell company," Bella said, repeating what Thorne had told her. "Worse," Sarah said. "It was a shell company. As of 3 hours ago, Hayes Global acquired the debt of that shell company for pennies on the dollar. We are now Julian's investors. We own the high-rise. We own his deal. We own him." Bella felt dizzy. "When I met Julian," Bella whispered, "I told him you were a consultant. I wanted him to love me." "I know," Arthur said, his voice gentle for the first time. "That was your mother in you. It was a noble and foolish sentiment." He put a hand on her shoulder. "But you are also my daughter. And a Hayes always protects their assets. And you, Bella, and that child, you are my primary asset." He looked at Thorne. "Thorne, send the message. I think Mr. Vance has been in the Dubai holding cell long enough. It's time for him to come home. I want to see him." Julian Vance spent 72 hours in a windowless, concrete room in a Dubai detention center. He went from arrogant to confused to terrified. They didn't beat him. They just left him with his own thoughts. His investors had vanished. His phone was gone. His lawyer in LA wasn't answering. On the third day, the door opened. It wasn't an Emirati guard. It was Mr. Thorne. "Julian Vance," Thorne said, his voice flat. "Your situation has been resolved. You are being deported." Julian, haggard and stinking of sweat, nearly cried in relief. "Oh God, thank you. My father-in-law. He's just a consultant, but he has connections. He must have called." "Get on the plane," Thorne said, cutting him off. It was not a first-class ticket. He was in coach, in the middle seat, with Mr. Thorne on one side and another, equally large man on the other. He wasn't allowed to speak. When they landed at LAX, he wasn't taken home. He was put in another black Escalade and driven downtown. "This isn't Bel Air," Julian said, panic rising. "We're not going to Bel Air," Thorne said. They pulled into the underground garage of a sleek, black skyscraper. The sign on the building read, "Hayes Global Holdings, West Coast Division." Julian's blood ran cold. This is a joke, right? The same name. It's a coincidence." Thorne just looked at him. Julian was escorted into a private elevator. It went to the penthouse floor. The doors opened onto a vast, stunningly cold boardroom. It was dark, save for the 50-foot wall of glass that overlooked the entire city. At the far end of a comically long mahogany table sat one man. Arthur Hayes. "Julian," Arthur said. His voice was calm, conversational. "Sit." Julian, his knees weak, stumbled into the chair at the opposite end of the table. "Mr. Hayes, sir, there's been a terrible mistake. Your daughter, Bella, I don't know where she is. She's very emotional." "She's pregnant," Arthur said, his voice like a chip of ice. Julian flinched. Yes, exactly. Her hormones. She's not thinking straight." "Oh, she's thinking straight," Arthur said, "for the first time in a year." He gestured to his general counsel, Sarah, who was standing in the shadows. "Sarah, the situation." "Yes, sir." Sarah turned on the lights. Julian was blinded. He saw now that the table wasn't empty. It was lined with a dozen people, lawyers, accountants, all staring at him. "Julian Vance," Sarah began, her voice ringing with legal authority, "you are here today for a reckoning." A thick, 500-page binder was slid down the table. It stopped perfectly in front of Julian. He opened it. The first page was a picture, the high-resolution, medically documented photograph of Bella's bruised face. Julian slammed the binder shut. This is a lie. She fell. She's clumsy." "Page 2, Arthur said, his voice hardening. Julian, trembling, opened it. It was a transcript. "Julian, you are my property. You do as I say. Bella, I won't." Sound of a blow. "Julian, now, you will go upstairs. You will be at my side, and you will smile. Do you understand me?" "We have the audio, of course," Sarah said pleasantly. "And the video from the study, the disabled security camera." You spied on me." Julian was aghast. "We protected our asset," Arthur corrected. "Which brings us to the high-rise. Your Vance Dynamic Properties." A new set of papers was slid in front of him. "As you know, your Dubai investors were fraudulent," Sarah said. "Their assets were seized. Their debt was acquired. By us." "You." Julian looked at Arthur, comprehension dawning in his eyes like a slow, terrible sunrise. "Hayes Global. You're Hayes Global." "I am," Arthur said, with a quiet, terrible pride. "I am the old money dinosaur. I am the nobody from Chicago. And you hit my daughter." This is illegal," Julian sputtered. "Is it?" Arthur asked, genuinely curious. "Is it illegal to acquire a non-performing loan? Is it illegal to install a new board to oversee a failing project? Because as of 9 a.m. this morning, the board of Vance Dynamic Properties, which is me, voted you out. You're fired, Julian. You can't. My company. It's my company now, and it's bankrupt. I have money. I have my accounts. Ah, Sarah said. You mean the accounts commingled with your wife's trust fund? The funds you've been siphoning for fees? An injunction has been filed. All your assets are frozen, pending a criminal investigation by the DA for fraud, and, of course, the other matter. What other matter? Julian whispered. A set of divorce papers landed on top of the pile. Bella is filing for divorce, Arthur said, citing irreconcilable differences and, well, all this. He gestured to the binder. She is seeking full custody of the child. You will have no rights. You will have no visitation. You will not come within 500 yards of her or my grandchild. Ever. Julian Vance, the visionary, the millionaire, broke. He slumped in his chair, a pathetic, deflated thing. You've taken everything. No, Julian, Arthur said, standing up, buttoning his suit jacket. I've taken nothing. You built nothing. You were nothing. You were a parasite that attached itself to my family. I am simply cleaning my house. He walked to the window and looked out at the city. The 300 times you hurt her, the 300 times you demeaned her, the 300 times you told her she was worthless, every one of those was a nail in your own coffin. He turned. Thorne. Mr. Thorne stepped forward. What now? Julian asked, his voice a child's wail. Now, Arthur said, you're trespassing. 2 LAPD officers, who had been waiting patiently outside, entered the room. Julian Vance, one officer asked. That's him, Arthur said. Sir, you are under arrest for spousal battery, felony assault, and grand theft. As the officers cuffed him, Julian looked at Arthur, his eyes wild. You did this! She'll take me back! Bella loves me! She's a haze, Julian, Arthur said, his voice full of pity. She just forgot for a little while. He watched as the millionaire was led away, weeping, leaving his entire, hollow life behind. 9 months later, the world was no longer glass and steel. It was green. Bella sat in a sprawling, fragrant garden at a classic, white-columned estate in rural Connecticut. This was not a safe house, a sterile fortress of defense. This was a home, a place of rolling hills, ancient oak trees, and a sense of deep, generational peace. The air smelled of damp earth and blooming peonies, a scent so profoundly different from the sterile, chlorinated perfection of Bel Air that it felt like a different planet. In her arms, nestled in a soft, cream-colored blanket, was Alice Hayes, 3 weeks old, perfect, and blessedly unaware of the inferno her existence had ignited. Bella had spent the last 9 months in a crucible. The trial had been a public, brutal affair. Julian, cornered and stripped of his assets, had fought like a rabid animal. His defense attorneys, funded by the last dregs of a distant relative's money, had tried to paint Bella as a hysterical, manipulative heiress, a gold digger who had trapped their client and then turned on him when he disciplined her. It had been a fatal miscalculation. The prosecution, led by a shark from the DA's office, who had been hand-fed a case by Sarah and Arthur's legal team, had been methodical. They didn't just present the evidence. They curated a performance of Julian's monstrosity. The binder, of course, was Exhibit A. But the true twist, the moment the juries discussed was visibly sealed, was the audio. The courtroom had fallen into a sickening, absolute silence. There was only the sound of Julian's voice, played over the high-end speakers, dripping with contempt. You are my property. You do as I say. Bella's whispered, defiant, I won't. And then, the sound. The sickening, sharp crack of his hand across her face, followed by the dull thud of her body hitting the floor. A woman in the jury box had gasped, her hand flying to her own mouth. Julian, who had been sitting with a practiced, arrogant smirk, had turned the colour of ash. Bella's testimony was the final nail. She had walked to the stand, not as the trembling, broken wife, but as Bella Hayes. She was calm, she was precise, she was cold. She recited dates, facts, and figures. She described the 300 times of emotional abuse with the detached clarity of a financial report. When Julian's lawyer tried to break her, asking if she had ever loved him, she had looked at him, her gaze unwavering. "I loved a projection," she'd said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "A man I invented. The real man, the one who called his unborn child a thing, and then struck his pregnant wife. I don't know him. I only know him as a threat. He was convicted on all counts: felony assault, spousal battery, grand theft, and a litany of financial fraud charges. The judge, citing the callous and sociopathic lack of remorse, had sentenced him to the maximum: 10 years in a state prison. The Billionaire beater was now just a number in a system. Bella heard soft footsteps on the gravel path. Arthur Hayes approached. He wasn't the CEO. He wasn't the weapon. He was wearing a soft, worn, cable-knit sweater and simple trousers. He looked, for the first time in her life, simply like her father. "Is she?" he whispered, his eyes fixed on the bundle in her arms. "Fast asleep," Bella smiled, shifting Alice slightly. Arthur sat beside her on the stone bench. He seemed almost nervous. He looked at his granddaughter, his face, usually a mask of control, working with a complex set of emotions. "She has your mother's hair," he said, his voice thick. "She has your eyes, I think," Bella replied softly. "May I?" Bella gently transferred the sleeping baby into his arms. Arthur Hayes, the man who commanded boardrooms and dismantled global conglomerates, looked utterly terrified and completely undone. He held Alice as if she were a piece of priceless, fragile glass. Alice, in her sleep, uncurled a tiny, perfect fist and latched onto his finger. Bella watched as her father's eyes filled with tears. He bowed his head, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek and splashing onto the blanket. "I am so sorry, Bella," he whispered, his voice choked. Bella was stunned. "Daddy, for what?" He looked up, his eyes meeting hers, raw and honest. "For this. For letting it get this far. I taught you how to analyze a balance sheet, how to leverage a stock, how to command a room. But I never taught you how to spot a wolf. I respected your independence. I wanted you to have the love match I had with your mother. But I respected it to the point of negligence. I should have vetted him. I should have known. The moment he hit you. Bella, that blow. It landed on me, too. It was my failure." Bella reached out and put her hand on his. "No, Daddy," she said, her own voice firm. "It was my failure. I was the one who was so desperate to be normal that I ignored my own instincts. I was ashamed of our name, of our power. I tried to be small, and I found a man who would keep me small." She looked down at her daughter, sleeping peacefully in her grandfather's arms. "I won't make that mistake again," Bella continued, a new, cold strength in her voice. This is my inheritance. Not the money. Not the houses. This strength. The strength to see a threat and to neutralize it. I had to learn it. Alice will never have to learn it. She will be taught it. She will be a Hayes. From her first breath. Her phone buzzed on the bench beside her. Not a personal call. It was her new, encrypted business line. She glanced at the screen. It was Sarah, her general counsel. Bella picked it up. "Sarah, tell me." Arthur looked at her. His curiosity piqued. Bella listened, a slow, satisfied smile spreading. "He did? He signed the transfer. Excellent. No, that's perfect. The press release is approved. Go ahead, and send my regards to the Sota Foundation. Tell them, welcome home." She hung up. "What was that?" Arthur asked, gently rocking Alice, who had started to stir. "The Vance Dynamic Properties high-rise," Bella said, the name tasting like ash. "The building he was going to build his empire with. My money. My name. The one we acquired," Arthur said, a predatory glint returning to his eye. "The one I acquired," Bella corrected him gently, "in the divorce settlement. It's been sitting empty, a monument to his ego. But as of 10 minutes ago, I've donated it. The entire $1 billion building." Arthur's eyebrows shot up. "To whom?" "The Sota Foundation," Bella said. "The women's shelter he despised, the one I threw money away on." She looked out at the garden, her vision clear. "We're retrofitting it. The top 10 floors will be the Alice Hayes Sanctuary, secure, anonymous housing for women and children escaping domestic violence. The lower floors will be a legal aid center, a job training facility, and a free daycare." "He wanted a legacy, Daddy," Bella said, her voice quiet but ringing with finality. "He wanted his name on a building. Now, his greatest failure will be the place where 1,000 women a year find the strength to leave men just like him." Arthur Hayes stared at his daughter. The tears were gone. In their place was a profound, almost blinding pride. He saw her, not his little girl, not just a survivor. He saw a queen. "Bella," he said, his voice full of awe. "That is the most Hayes thing you have ever done." Bella smiled, taking her daughter back from his arms. She kissed Alice's head. "He called her a thing that would ruin him," Bella whispered. "He was half right. He's in a cell. We are here. And my daughter's name is on the building that erased his." She looked at her father, a true equal. "He's a ghost, Daddy. We're the inheritance." Bella's story is a brutal reminder that the most perfect lives often hide the darkest secrets. She was a prisoner in a golden cage, broken down over 300 days of terror. But they forgot who she was. They forgot the power that ran in her blood. She didn't just escape. She and her powerful father unleashed a reckoning that proved that true power isn't about arrogance or new money. It's about a cold, calculated, and absolute defense of one's family. Julian Vance lost his empire, his freedom, and his name, all because he underestimated the woman he thought he owned, and the father who stood behind her. What do you think of Bella's story? Do you think the father's revenge was an act of justice, or did he go too far? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. This story is a testament to the incredible strength of survivors. If you or anyone you know is in a similar situation, please know there is help. Thank you for listening to this real-life drama. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more intense, dramatic stories you won't find anywhere else. Click that notification bell so you never miss a new story.
Thanks for watching.